Money without ethics is not the ideal way to go about things. And that is why I decided to get rid of my entire portfolio on Robinhood. Many people have been sending me messages asking me about what is going on with Gamestop and AMC shares, and what is this retail investor, institutional investor, and what is this whole situation all about. So let me try and explain that to you in very simple, understandable terms. So what is going on really is that this is a battle between David and Goliath, and David is winning, or at least it seems like the David might win. Because the goal of this video is to break things down and explain in as simple terms as possible, so let us start from absolute beginning. What is a retail investor and what is a hedge fund institutional investor? What is going on? So retail investors are individuals like you and me who invest our own hard-earned money into stocks, okay? And we are usually small scale investors. We get a salary, or whatever business we do and whatever earnings we make, we invest them so that hopefully that money will grow over time. That is the definition of retail investor in simple terms. And then you have institutional investors. These are large companies that manage other people's money into their funds. Can you believe that 80% ownership in the S&P portfolio is held by institutional investors? And as that gets bigger and bigger, the share of institutional investors also keeps getting bigger. Now that you understand that institutional investor is actually a large company, now let us move towards the next step. What is actually going on in the stock market? Although in real life things are much more complex, but to understand in very simple terms, when a company goes public, it releases some shares of that company, right? And the more the people try to buy shares of that company, the value of each share goes up. Therefore, when people are trying to buy shares of a particular company, the stock price keeps going up, okay? And then there is another way that people also trade stocks, where they short sell it. And this is completely opposite to buying shares. When you buy shares, you know that you paid this certain amount to purchase that share of a company, right? Let's say a company's share is worth $100 and you put $1,000 in it. So you get 10 shares, okay? Now what will happen if the company completely tanks? Your losses are limited because those $1,000 for 10 shares will come down to $0, right? But your gains are undefined. It is even possible that the worth of that one share for $100 can rise up to $3,000. Who knows? So there are no fixed limits for how high the share can go, and therefore your gains are undefined, but your losses are defined, they are limited. Now when many people try to buy the shares of that company, the valuation of the company goes higher. But in the opposite case, when people start to sell all their shares of a particular stock, the valuation comes down. So in simple terms, the more people are trying to buy shares, the higher it will rise. And as any other supply demand curve, the more the people try to sell their shares, the stock price will come down. And therefore, when you buy a share, you want the price of that share to go higher. Now shorting is exactly the opposite, with the caveat that you actually sell shares that you don't actually own. You sell at a particular price, wanting the share price to go down. And when it goes down, you will buy it back. Now, the more the stock of a company is shorted, the less the value becomes. To explain in simple terms, let's say shares of a particular company currently cost $10 to buy. So a shorter, what they would do is that they would sell those for $10, hoping and wanting those share price to come down to, let's say, $5. And when it comes down to $5, they will buy it back. So they sold it for 10, bought it for 5, so they made $5. Now, what happens here is that in this case, it is the opposite of buying shares because your gains are limited. Let's say the $10 share comes down to $1. That means that your gains are defined because then you gain $9 per share. But in this case, losses are undefined because if the stock value actually goes up, the $10 share becomes $1,000. Then you will lose, because then you will have to buy back at a much higher price. You sold it for cheap and you are forced to buy back at a much higher price. And this is exactly what has been going on with the GameStop share. What happened is that this Melvin Capital company shorted GameStop's share big time, and they did that with other companies as well. Now when they are shorting, they are actually trying to destroy that particular company, and retail investors got together on a social media platform called Reddit, and they decided to teach this company a lesson by buying as many shares as possible of GameStop. While on the one hand, Melvin Capital wanted the GameStop shares to go down, retail investors started purchasing GameStop shares to such a level that the value of each share went very high. Last year, July, it was trading just around $4. Now it even touched $350 mark. What that can do is that it can bankrupt this company that shorted GameStop. And what has been going on is that Melvin Capital was getting bailed out by Citadel Investment. And Citadel also is that company that does transactions for Robinhood. And to prevent further losses for these large corporates, what they did is that they influenced Robinhood from letting people buy more shares of GameStop. And now because people were not being allowed to buy GameStop shares, the price value was coming down because they could still sell the shares. And this way Robinhood was engaged in manipulation of free market transactions. And this is hurting many millions of people who actually want to buy GameStop share through Robinhood, but they are forced to not to buy them. And in response, many people are upset with Robinhood, including myself, and therefore I decided that for the time being I will stop all my transactions on Robinhood, and I sold my entire portfolio that I held in Robinhood. I now exclusively use Fidelity, and I might switch to other traders as well, but for the time being I will not use Robinhood. Let me explain where the real problem even lies. The real problem is shorting itself. Let's say if I have this iPad which does not belong to me, how can I sell it to somebody else and then buy it back at a cheaper price later? And this is exactly what Elon Musk has also pointed out. Elon Musk's tweet says that you cannot sell the houses that you don't own. You cannot sell a car that you don't own. Then how can you sell a stock that you don't own? And therefore Elon Musk goes to a level further and says that give them no respect. Because for people like Elon Musk, it hits hard at home, because last year many people were shorting Tesla as well. Tesla short sellers lost $40 billion last year because they wanted the Tesla stock to go down, but Tesla stock grew by 700%, and therefore they were forced to buy back those shares. And then if it is much more expensive than how much you actually paid for it, it can bankrupt you. And these shorters who do such things are in a way forcing companies to shut down, and rightly so. Elon Musk was upset, and therefore Elon Musk also raises this issue with shorting. And now let us discuss the point where it comes down to basic ethics. See, if I screw up financially, if I go bankrupt, nobody is going to bail me out, all right? But if a large corporation is reckless, takes bad decisions, and then it goes bankrupt, they are too big to fail, and the government tends to bail them out. In 2008 recession, how many companies were bailed out by the federal government, including Ford and General Motors? And who pays for that bailout money? Normal taxpayers like you and I. And that is why retail investors' time has arrived, and retail investors are teaching these big corporations some important and valuable lessons. Marco on his YouTube channel made a great point. He said, for these corporations, gains are privatized and losses are socialized. Every gain they make, they buy another yacht, they buy another private jet or huge cars and bungalows. However, when they get in financial trouble, they are the ones who actually get bailed out by the government. Do not short companies and destroy their futures. Retail investors are speaking, and they are speaking loud. And in my personal view, it is about time that shorting should be prohibited. Thank you for watching. Jai Hind and God bless America.